joining us. You may remember him, an old friend of the show, Conservative commentator, Mr. Benedict Spence is live in the studio. Very good morning to you.
Good morning. Now that there is peace in the Middle East, I have broken my self-imposed exile and I have returned to you. This embargo has ended, and I think everybody can be very grateful that there might be peace, but probably a little upset that I'm back.
He has been released back into the studio, folks. We make light of it. Look, before I come to you, let me put the question to our audience. Calls are already coming in, understandably, but Israel and Hamas have agreed the first stage of the Trump peace plan, with all 48 hostages set to be released within 72 hours. What's your reaction? Do you trust that this will lead to Middle East peace? I think Donald Trump may be over-egging the pudding there. Do you think that any deal is worth it to get these hostages home? Who do you praise? Who do you welcome? Who do you criticise for the failure of this to take so long? Give us a call. Tell us what you think. 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at TalkTV. Calls charged at the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate. Message, you knew that bit already. But also, I'd love to know whether you think that if we did have peace in the Middle East, just literally everything was absolutely fine, hostages released, the prisoners released, the Hamas lay down their arms, we have a moderate, Lib Dem coalition government in Gaza, we have the rebuilding of Gaza, it becomes a top tourist destination. Do you think that those hate mongers on our streets will stop? Do you think that would have stopped, say, someone basically trying to knife their way into a synagogue in Manchester on Yom Kippur? Do you think that the people shouting for the Intifada to be globalised and from the river to the sea, do you think that would stop them on our streets, on American streets, on French streets and everywhere else? I'd love to know your thoughts on that. I have a funny feeling I know the answer to that. Benedict Spence, I'm just leave it wide open to you. What's your reaction to this peace deal?
I think that the ego of Donald Trump is a powerful thing, and his desire to potentially be in the running for a Nobel Peace Prize has possibly brought about something extraordinary.
Who cares?
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it, frankly.
I mean, kind of say Obama got a peace prize for having he literally just come into office.
He turned up and they gave him one. So, the bar was quite low. It's one of those things where obviously, simply because of the complexity of the plan and the nature of the belligerents, you can't count your chickens before they hatch. Yeah. Even if 99% of the Hamas leadership decide, actually, we do want a peace deal, all it takes is one little holdout to decide, actually, we're going to kick off, for it potentially to unravel. And let's be clear, Hamas's ideology has not changed, its worldview has not changed, and one also has to think about what kind of pressure has been exerted on them to have potentially got them to this stage, both from their allies and from their adversaries as well. One thing I would say, if it does go ahead, there's no other way of framing it, it's an Israeli victory. People will try to say, look, this is about negotiation, this shows that negotiation works. No, it doesn't. It shows that bombing your enemies into submission actually does work.
Well, that's it. So much of this has been about, Donald Trump banging heads together. I've seen some extraordinary analysis in BBC, Sky and others from supposedly sort of experienced reporters saying, well, this is after Israel made this big mistake of bombing Qatar and that angered Trump. Are you kidding me? It brought Qatar to the table. The only reason Hamas has been able to carry on is funding from places like Qatar, their leaders living a billionaire lifestyle in Qatar, and the Qatari leaders go, uh-oh, we're next. Yeah, because you should be next because you're harbouring terrorists. You're no different to the Taliban harbouring Al-Qaeda in 2001. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know why we treat them any different. Oh, yeah, because they own half of London and half of America. Yeah. But morally, no difference. But here's the thing, they're just richer. So money talks. But the reality is it has been the IDF troops going into Gaza City, saying we are going to push on, Netanyahu's pig-headed stubbornness to defeat Hamas, that has meant that it actually became worth Hamas considering giving up the biggest leverage they had, and B, worth other Arab nations, including Qatar, Saudi Arabia and others, to go, you know what, this is now more of a problem. And actually, there is that argument, isn't there, that the only justification some people, they're quite wrong in this, some people think that Israel have for this war is to get back their hostages. And if they got their hostages back, they don't have a justification. I mean, load of nonsense. No hostages were taken in any of the wars we've fought over the years, and we still were justified to go to war with our enemies. But do you think there is actually a lot of people think clever posturing and game playing going on.
I mean, on the surface, a lot of Arab nations have been very vociferous in their opposition to what Israel is doing, but in reality, they were never going to be interested in rebuilding Gaza whilst Hamas was still there. You know, that was always a major obstacle, and why the Israelis felt that they were emboldened enough to go in, because in fact, even though Hamas wanted to start the next intifada, none of the Arab states, including Egypt, which is right on the border and has a huge military, none of them were going to go, yeah, do you know what we really want is a war with Israel? That's really in our interests. None of them were prepared to do that at any point. So from the start, they were isolated. You had all of these militia groups, be it the Houthis in Yemen, be it Hezbollah in Lebanon. Where are they now? You know, the Lebanese state doesn't function. It's able to disarm Hezbollah now because the Israelis have dealt so much punishment.
Because Hezbollah was bigger than their own army.
Yeah, the Israelis have lost fewer than 2,000 soldiers in this campaign. Actually, when you think about that on the surface, that's unbelievably good. That's a fantastic rate of return, given
where some 23, 25 Hamas fighters have been killed.
Exactly, and that's on home territory.
But counted as somehow civilian deaths in Gaza.
And journalists, there's about 50,000 journalists have died in Gaza.
Oh, more than that.
Yes, it's been more than any other war in history. All of them combined, in fact.
Babies and journalists, the only people who've been killed in Gaza.
They're high achievers, is what I could say. Well, not so much.
I mean,
we're
making light of it, but that's how mad some of the propaganda is.
There's no doubt war has been dreadful.
Reality is 100% is that that Israel has won this war against Hamas. But you can win a war without Hamas losing. Now, did we say at the end of the Second World War, yeah, okay, Nazis, you can stay in control, not a problem, carry on as you are. No, we carried on fighting the war until they were out, and we took over, and the Soviets took over half of Germany, we took over half of Germany.
In some cases. There is actually... OK, I'm going to get a bit niche here. There were actually quite a lot of examples of Nazi officials having to be kept in place because of the fear of regime collapse. Okay, but there was that process of denazification.
Denazification, exactly. So we're not going to de-Hamasify.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
Do you think also, I mean, they're not going to lay down their arms, which they have to do, or even if they do, it'll be to sort of quietly come back into they're going to just go underground, but they're going to be pulling the levers. Whoever has the weapons, whoever has the power, whoever is willing to kill is going to have the power in Gaza. Gaza, realistically, is not going to become, the sort of,
democracy.
And it's not going to become, like Sharm el-Sheikh was before the Arab Spring and before the bombs in Egypt, when, Sharm el-Sheikh was just becoming this amazing, where these peace talks taking place, this amazing, we used to go there on holiday all the time. Guaranteed sunshine, 365 days a year, and beaches and lovely seas, scuba diving, what's not to like? Well, you only have to go there now to know, that has been destroyed and can very easily be destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, that was set up by the Israelis, funnily enough, when they occupied the Sinai. There was nothing there before. Great people, they build, they make the desert bloom. What will happen in Gaza is that it will effectively become a bit like Lebanon. It'll be fractured. There'll be different political groups that will have to have a certain amount of political power, but it's not going to be a democracy. There's going to be an international peacekeeping force, and when we say peacekeeping, it's an occupational force. And the other thing is, as much as people are talking about the potential now for a two-state solution, I don't see a future where Gaza is part of the same future as the West Bank. Now, that's possible that turns into a democracy. Not a great one, but it could. Gaza, that's not.
The trouble is, the democracy in the West Bank or in Gaza will lead to terrorism. Hamas would be re-elected in Gaza, and Hamas would be elected instead of Fatah running the Palestinian Authority
Fatah were
in the
not
West
great
Bank.
people.
But here's the thing: neither Hamas nor Fatah, who run the Palestinian Authority, which runs the West Bank, neither of these organisations, nor do most of the people they represent. Well, given the elections that were held 20 years ago, most of the people in those places actually are too young to have ever even had a chance to vote. Neither of those organisations believe in a two-state solution. They believe in a one-state solution, and that one state ain't Israel. So, can this ever happen? I don't know. Just to report that the Egyptians have reported that a ceasefire is in effect in Gaza. Now, I was in Israel only a few weeks ago. I'm stood, 700 metres from the Gazan border. And I was genuinely just standing there on the Gaza border, and you could see, bombs hitting. You could see that. Israel have also just confirmed that the ceasefire is in effect as well. So that is something. It's
to be honest, it is remarkable if they've been able to get these two sides to the table at all. As I say, it's not through diplomacy alone, it is through Israeli military supremacy. If that were not the case, Hamas would not have accepted any kind of peace situation, because Hamas made it very clear from the start that they consider this, as you've just said, that the state of Israel is illegitimate and that actually it shouldn't exist. So we do have to come back to that, and we can say, look, the Arab states have been very helpful, Turkey's been very helpful, the United States, though, ultimately are the one that are driving this, and at no point have they been prepared to isolate or abandon Israel. They have made it very clear that there is no future with Hamas.
Yep.
Saudi Arabia has made it very clear that there's no future with Hamas. Egypt, Turkey, all of these people have said, look, in fact, we do understand this, that there's no other way out of this, and pummeling them into a position where they actually go, we have potentially had enough, was always part of the solution. As sad as that may sound, that's what a war is.
No, that's what a war is, exactly. I mean, I must just correct myself. The Israeli government has said that the ceasefire will come into effect once the deal is ratified. That deal, we understand, is due to be ratified within minutes. I mean, there's been extraordinary celebrations at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, and it is genuine. It's not possible. It really is not possible to convey how much the hostage issue dominates conversation in Israel. You cannot walk down a street, you cannot pass a park, you cannot walk past a restaurant, a shop that does not have yellow ribbons, does not have bring them home. The photographs, the names of every hostage taken and everyone still in captivity, dead or alive, they are, I defy any Israeli not to be able to name them all, to recognise them if they saw them in the street, well, from their faces, what they looked like 2 years ago, goodness knows what they look like now. This is all encompassing for the Israeli people, and this can only be the start. Nothing can happen without this. Here's the thing: back in Britain, I mean, there's a campaign against anti-Semitism rally outside Downing Street today at 7 o'clock. I'm going to be attending and going to be speaking about the failure of this government and indeed the last government to tackle anti-Semitism on British streets, which has been happening under the cover of, I care about babies in Gaza. Even if a single baby in Gaza is not facing troubles, their parents getting food, or facing being moved, or facing rockets to their home, I don't believe that those people are going to stop their vilification of Jews in Britain and their protests on the streets every fortnight. Bearing in mind the first protest on the street after the Hamas massacre on October 7th, 2023, they tried to organise it while women were being gang raped and mutilated, while babies were being burnt in their beds on that day, before any IDF soldiers or bombs had been dropped by Israel on Gaza. Do you think it's going to make any difference to what's happening back home here in the UK?
It might dampen down, but it's never going to go away in the same way. It's out now, and there's a justification in the minds of these people, and they've seen what the opposition is. Now, if you go out on the street and you hold up a sign saying, I support Palestine action, you'll get arrested. But as long as you don't quite go that far, you can get away with an awful lot.
I support Palestine. That's all you have to say. Well, we know. I mean, although it's interesting to see that our little friendly doctor who's been working for the NHS, who's been posting most extraordinary things on social media, who said, I'm not allowed on shows like TalkTV. Julia HB won't have me on. I invited her on, I've DM'd her, I've had to follow her so I get her feed in. I mean, disgusting, horrible anti-Semitic feed. But the GMC, the General Medical Council, is re-looking at her. The police are now getting involved after complaints about her outrageous, blatant anti-Semitism. I mean, it's celebrating a terror attack on innocent people. This woman is an absolute foul person. But you know what? Still willing to have her on air. I've sent the invitation out. She's replied to me, won't give me a number so we can contact her, privately to get her on the show, which tells you everything you need to know.
That's a shame. We're here all morning.
I know, and genuinely, I mean, I keep checking my DMs, but she has not slid into them.
We're not inviting
like the
enough.
snake that she is. But come on air, say your piece, and we'll take you to task. Let's talk about what's happening back here in the UK. Big speech from Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, yesterday. She, at the beginning of the week, was facing some big question marks about her leadership. Possible, shadow cabinet, revolt. Talk about her not lasting past the May local elections. She wouldn't even confirm or deny what would happen after those, which she's expected Tories and Labour to get a drubbing. But actually, bit of a barnstorming speech, lots and lots of big announcements, very popular, not just with the Tory faithful, with a lot of other people. I mean, key, of course, front page news today, the stamp duty scrapping. I mean, I know that's something that you would have loved to have had in place. Of course, not happening now. 2029, you'd think, well, no, they're not even saying they do it immediately, because it does cost, 11, various Is it 8 billion? Is it 11 billion? Will it be 29 billion? Depends. You know, it's only your primary home. You know, if you're only a second home as a landlord, which won't count, which I'm fully in favour of. But also scrapping business rates on the high streets, leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. That's a no-brainer. Axing carbon tax and electricity, dropping a hold of the net zero madness, slashing welfare spending, trebling police stop and search in crime hotspots, ending all of the wokery in the police, closing down rip-off useless university courses, spending that money that would have gone on those tuition fees to boost apprenticeships, and reversing inheritance tax raid on family farms. I mean, yes. Here's the only trouble. They're not in power and they're third in the polls. And according to the latest poll from More in Common out yesterday, they'd come fourth in a general election.
And it's also a shame that they're not in power and weren't recently in power. Oh, wait, no, they were. Whoops, and that's why they're doing so badly. Because they've come out with all of these things that, you know, many sensible people would go, absolutely, I love all of this. And the thing that everybody will say is, and admittedly, she was not Prime Minister, but they will say...
She was in the cabinet.
They'll say of the party generally... OK, where was this gumption at the time when we were all crying out for it? When instead, lots of Tory backbenchers were going, oh, well, maybe the party needs a period in opposition. Maybe we need to let Labour in.
Oh, they absolutely did.
But now we are reaping the benefits of the Tories having their existential crisis because we have Labour for this period of time. And there's no guarantee that the Tories will come back. What I would say is, for all the sort of the doom and gloom about the party, there did appear to be a lot more sort of energy at party conference. It seemed to be a moment where they were able to sort of get back on track. That energy will begin to permeate out. Whether it's enough to turn the ship around, I don't know. But I do think, actually, rarely for the Tories, this was a good party conference. And actually, they're all starting to pull in the same direction. Talk of a leadership challenge might now be a bit premature. Robert Jenrick was, you know, everywhere, but he didn't quite seem to be the same Robert Jenrick.
Oh, no,
as he
she
was
definitely
usually.
saved her leadership, certainly for quite a few months now. But also the key thing is that she said, you know, we're going to have a period of reflection. We're going to spend 2 years doing policy detail, and then we'll announce policies. And then reforms that are just, whipping up the polls and announcing policy statements. They had no choice. A lot of the stuff, again, I don't think you should ever want to be leader of a party unless you have, at least 5 clear things you want to do. I think she's a thinker. I think she's an interesting character. I think she's got the right character. Whether she has the energy levels, and I mean that is a key issue for a lot of people for that job is another thing. Whether she can take people with her is another thing. But that speech was absolutely, I mean, a big thumbs up on virtually every single count. As you say, the key thing is we are so far away from election. In terms of stamp duty, there's no doubt at all. Anyone who understands at all about how taxes work knows that this is a terrible tax for the whole economy. Now, people are saying the usual suspects. Oh, this is a tax to benefit London and the South East, people who already own a home, rich people. I mean, I know people who've bought homes where they've paid like, 100 grand stamp duty. I mean, we're talking, but I also know people who have had a home which they bought and then they no longer need because they've no longer got a family at home and they want to downsize. But the next property down, they'll still end up paying tens of thousands in stamp duty. And they're going, but why would I do that? Why would I face a penalty? We've got to get rid of that penalty. But the crucial thing is, this makes a difference to someone getting on the housing ladder the first time, wanting to get married and have kids, and being able to buy that property for one kid, and then people are being able to move for work. And crucially also, every time people buy a home, whether they buy a one-bed flat or they buy a big sodding mansion in Mayfair, they employ builders and plumbers and electricians and decorators, and they buy furniture. People who do those jobs,
it gets the economy moving. It frees up capital, which Rachel Reeves might sit there and go, oh, I'd quite like for me. But you know what? As you said, it goes to all sorts of other people who, given that this is the UK and this year, will get taxed anyway several times over. Why do you need to add another tax that blocks that movement? It gets the supply going, it gets capital moving. You will see benefits from it. So when people say, oh, it's going to cost us 11 billion, you go, but it's not really, though, because otherwise that money is sat there doing nothing. People can't get on the housing ladder. People don't downsize. What's the point? And then you'll have somebody like Richard Bergen go, well, let's have a wealth tax. And you go, well, how do you get the money if it's just sat there? That's the Labour solution.
But also the key thing is this money, when more people are getting to builders and to bathroom shops and all of that at every level of the market, they spend that money. You get the VAT on all that spending. You get all of the... Remember that big boom in what people are doing to their homes after lockdown, when some people who owned homes had money and hadn't been able to spend it because they hadn't been going out to work, going on holidays and going to the pub or whatever, but they also had been sitting at home going, I want to improve my home. And so people will spend that money. You get the VAT, you also get the PAYE tax from all those other people being employed. I mean, this is such a good thing. Bearing in mind, people talk about this tax, you have to have this tax. This tax was only brought in 2003.
Yeah. And I know so many older people who all say the same thing. I would like to downsize. I would like to
pay a penalty
exactly.
to do so.
It is prohibitive to do so. So, if honestly, it would be a very sensible thing for Labour to embrace. They'll never do it. But now that Kemi Badenoch has sort of fired the starting gun and started that conversation, I know she's not said it would come in straight away. But once you've broken the taboo about actually getting rid of some of these taxes, you get the conversation going.
I just think it's. I think the Overton window has gone just shifted. Well, probably to the right. But the key thing on that is that I don't think any party can be elected at the next general election not promising to abolish stamp duty. I think now that is Reform will have to agree to it as well, and I don't see how Labour cannot agree. They won't do it in this Parliament. They can't afford to. But there's this idea, so many, not just on the left, but also in the media, which is largely left. They've got this into their heads. I mean, and again, I even mean some of the Conservatives who are who secretly Lib Dems. They've got this idea that you. If you need money, you raise taxes as opposed to cutting spending. But also that raising taxes does raise money, when there's loads of evidence that you actually...
It's the opposite.
It's, you can have a bigger share of a smaller pie, or you can grow. There is no economy in the world that is booming that has the sort of high taxes that we've got.
And the thing is, a lot of listeners to the show might disagree. A strong Conservative Party keeps Reform honest. If Reform has that trajectory now, it would be really easy for them to rest on their laurels if there's nobody snapping at their heels. If Kemi Badenoch is able to set out that good stall and bring into the conversation, actually, it does need to be tax cuts. Reform can't get away with just going, oh, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, we're going to dance around on policy.
If you're a Reform voter, this is good for you as well.
Good for you.
Very, very interesting, though. We had two callers on straight after the speech yesterday who both had been Tory voters, now voting for Reform, and were very impressed and going, oh, and they were taking another look. So we'll see. We'll talk to lots of guests about all this. I want to talk about the China Spy trial collapse. The former cabinet secretary, among many people, including former directors of public prosecutions and others, questioning an awful lot about what Keir Starmer has had to say about the reasons for that collapse of that trial. As Alistair Heath in the Telegraph's writing today, this could be actually the final straw for his government. We are in possibly having to resign territory. Well, in normal times. Anyway, just an update, by the way, on the ceasefire hopes in Gaza. The Israeli Security Cabinet is going to meet at 3 o'clock UK time today, so 5 p.m. Tel Aviv time, to sign off that deal. And that's going to be followed by a meeting of the government, so we're not going to see that formal ceasefire in place, despite what the Egyptian government has said, until after that. But we'll keep you posted on all those developments as they happen. Donald Trump flying to the Middle East, we understand, today. Do get in touch, give us your thoughts, 0344 499 1000 on anything we're talking about, but in particular your reaction to this first stage of the peace deal being agreed between Israel and Hamas, those 48 hostages dead and alive coming home in the next 72 hours. That's what we're being told is going to happen. Do you believe it will happen, and what happens next?